I mean, we had a long talk about budget directed at me on that. And let me tell you something else. I think we are all, as a city, in a much worse situation than anybody realizes. And I'll tell you this, because, you know, we're talking about 1,000 layoffs, right? That's what's on the table right now. And everybody's talking about, why don't we do anything about that? Because we gotta cut the budget. The solution that's being proposed, the benefits we get from 1,000 layoffs from now are for next fiscal year, not this year. This year, we got a $200 million problem. And the reason we have that $200 million problem is because property taxes were less and sales taxes were less. Now, how do we come up with $200 million in 5 months? That's the question. Now, everybody's saying, you know, cut 1,000 people. That's next year. What about this year? The only plan on the table that they put forward is that we go to our reserve fund. That is fund that when we need money and we need to pay bills and we need cash right away, and let's say an emergency happens, there's an earthquake tomorrow and the city needs a few $1 million to repair things, that's where we would go. Now the plan that the CAO has put on the table is this. Let's take that down to zero, our reserve funds. It's about $180 million right now. Take that down to zero. Now in July, we're going to come back with a plan where we're leasing our public parking garages, and we'll get another $100 million from there. And I tell them, wait a minute, we don't even know if that deal's going to work out or not. How do we know, you know, if that's real or not? And secondly, those guys are going to come back, people bidding on those garages, and say, we know the city's back against the wall. They're going to take whatever we give them. And I keep telling the council and our mayor when he was there yesterday that what we have for this year is unworkable. And now finally people are beginning to catch on and talk about more that we cannot deplete our reserves to zero. Because what if, this is the worst case scenario, we deplete our reserves to zero. Come July, we don't have a deal on the 10 parking garages and we don't have $100 million. Beginning next fiscal year, July, we can't pay our bills. We need cash flow coming in and out of that account. And we get these things called TRAN, I don't know what it stands for, but we borrow from that when we need it. TRAN's not going to want to lend us any money because there's nothing to borrow on it, which is our reserves. And then what if there's an earthquake or an emergency? And I think that's the real risk in this whole conversation about the budget. And everybody's talking about, you know, next, you know, the layoffs, as if it's going to solve this year's problem, and it's not. And that's the real, I see that as the real problem. We have to make some, that's why, you know, hey, I'm going to lose discretionary funds, but I think we should get whatever we can from there because we need money now instead of depleting all our reserves wherever we can find it. And to add to that, the last 2 years my office has taken a 10% cut. This year my staff is on furloughs, alternating furloughs. We always have somebody staffed on Fridays. We have people staffed so that we could respond to constituents. I'm taking a furlough too. I still work, but it's as a pay cut for myself too. So my staff, and we're doing that as well, just to make sure that we're all taking a 10% cut.
Okay.